Welcome to Channel's Business Globe with me, Juliana Olayinka, reporting from just outside the Palace of Westminster in central London. Coming up on today's show, the UK Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer has unveiled a new immigration policy aimed at reducing net migration and tightening visa requirements. We'll delve into the implications for businesses and public services. And in London, Nigeria's Minister of Finance and the Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Wale Edun, participated in the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development's annual meetings, marking Nigeria's recent accession as the 77th member. Then later, we also cover the launch of the All-Party Parliamentary Group for Africa's report on Africa's just energy transition, highlighting Britain's role supporting sustainable initiatives on the continent. But first, Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer has announced a comprehensive overhaul of the UK's immigration system. The new policy aims to significantly reduce net migration by implementing stricter visa requirements, including higher English language proficiency standards and increased salary thresholds for skilled workers. Notably, the government plans to phase out visas for overseas care workers by 2028, a move that has sparked concern among healthcare providers facing staff shortages. During a televised address to the nation on Monday, Starmer emphasised the need for a controlled and fair immigration system, stating that without reform, the UK risks becoming an island of strangers. Critics argue that these measures may adversely affect sectors reliant on foreign labour and could hinder economic growth.
Today we publish a white paper on immigration, a strategy absolutely central to my plan for change that will finally take back control of our borders and close the book on a squalid chapter for our politics, our economy and our country. Take back control. Everyone knows that slogan, and everyone knows what it meant on immigration, or at least that's what people thought. Because what followed from the previous government, starting with the people who used that slogan, was the complete opposite. Between 2019 and 2023, even as they were going round our country, telling people with a straight face that they would get immigration down, net migration quadrupled until in 2023 it reached nearly 1 million. That's about the population of Birmingham, our second largest city. That's not control, it's chaos. And look, they must answer for themselves. But I don't think that you can do something like that by accident. It was a choice made even as they told you, told the country, they were doing the opposite. A one-nation experiment in open borders, conducted on a country that voted for control. Well, no more. Today, this Labour government is shutting down the lab. The experiment is over. We will deliver what you've asked for time and again, and we will take back control of our borders. And let me tell you why. Because I know, on a day like today, people who like politics will try to make this all about politics, about this or that strategy, targeting these voters, responding to that party. No. I'm doing this because it is right, because it is fair, and because it is what I believe in. Let me put it this way. Nations depend on rules, fair rules. Sometimes they're written down, often they're not. But either way, they give shape to our values, guide us towards our rights, of course, but also our responsibilities, the obligations we owe to each other. Now, in a diverse nation like ours, and I celebrate that, these rules become even more important. Without them, we risk becoming an island of strangers, not a nation that walks forward together. So when you have an immigration system that seems almost designed to permit abuse, that encourages some businesses to bring in lower paid workers rather than invest in our young people, or simply one that is sold by politicians to the British people on an entirely false premise, then you're not championing growth, you're not championing justice, or however else people defend the status quo. You're actually contributing to the forces that are slowly pulling our country apart. So yes, I believe in this. I believe we need to reduce immigration significantly. That's why some of the policies in this white paper go back nearly 3 years. Why I told the Labour Party conference, taking back control is a Labour argument. And why, most importantly of all, inward migration is already falling with this government. It's about fairness. And look, I mean, migration is part of Britain's national story. We talked last week about the great rebuilding of this country after the war. Migrants were part of that, and they make a massive contribution today. And you will never hear me denigrate that. But when people come to our country, they should also commit to integration, to learning our language. And our system should actively distinguish between those that do and those that don't. I think that's fair. Equally, Britain must compete for the best talent in the world, in science, in technology, in healthcare. You can't simply pull up a drawbridge, let nobody in, and think that's an economy that would work. That would hurt the pay packets of working people without question. But at the same time, we do have to ask why parts of our economy seem almost addicted to importing cheap labour, rather than investing in the skills of people who are here and want a good job in their community. Sectors like engineering, where visas have rocketed while apprenticeships have plummeted. Is that fair to Britain? Is that fair to young people, weighing up their future to miss out on those apprentices? To see colleges in their community almost entirely dedicated to one-year courses for overseas students? No, I don't think that it is. And truth be told, I don't think anybody does. Yet that is the Britain this broken system has created. So as this white paper sets out, every area of the immigration system, work, family and study, will be tightened up so we have more control. Skill requirements raised to degree level. English language requirements across all routes, including for dependents. The time it takes to acquire settled status extended from 5 years to 10. And enforcement tougher than ever, because fair rules must be followed. Now, make no mistake, this plan means migration will fall. That's a promise. But I want to be very clear on this. If we do need to take further steps, if we do need to do more to release pressure on housing and our public services, then mark my words, we will. But it's not just about numbers, because the chaos of the previous government also changed the nature of immigration in this country. Fewer people who make a strong economic contribution, more who work in parts of our economy that put downward pressure on wages. So perhaps the biggest shift in this white paper is that we will finally honour what take back control meant and begin to choose who comes here so that migration works for our national interest. You know, this is where the whole debate is skewed, as if some people think controlling immigration is reining in a sort of natural freedom, rather than the basic and reasonable responsibility of government to make choices that work for a nation's economy. And for years, this seems to have muddled our thinking. But let me be clear, it ends now. We will create a migration system that is controlled, selective, and fair. A clean break with the past that links access to visas directly to investment in homegrown skills. So that if a business wants to bring people in from abroad, they must first invest in Britain. But also, so settlement becomes a privilege that is earned, not a right. Easier if you make a contribution, if you work, pay in, and help rebuild our country. Now, some people may even be against that. But I think for the vast majority of people in this country, that is what they have long wanted to see. An immigration system that is fair, that works for our national interest, and that restores common sense and control to our borders. That is what this white paper will deliver. Lower net migration, higher skills, backing British workers. The start of repairing our social contract, which the chaos and cynicism of the last government did so much to undermine.
Elsewhere, the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development had its 2025 annual meeting and business forum in London this week. The coordinating Minister of the Economy, Wale Edun, attended the event, marking Nigeria's recent accession as the EBRD's 77th member. The Minister expressed optimism about the partnership, highlighting its potential to drive private sector-led growth, sustainable infrastructure development and a greener economy in Nigeria. The EBRD's expansion into sub-Saharan Africa signifies a strategic shift to support emerging markets and foster economic resilience.
Yeah, today we had the 34th annual general meeting of the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, and Nigeria was formally admitted to as a member alongside Benin Republic, Cote d'Ivoire and Iraq. And the EBRD focuses in particular on transition economies and private sector investment. And so it's a very important day for Nigeria as it is focused on growing the economy through, in particular, crowding in the private sector. It's a proud moment, a proud day, and we're looking forward to being a full and active and beneficial member of European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. That's why we're in London today, and we've had a successful outing for Nigeria. Thank you.
Coming up on Channel's Business Global, I'll be sharing highlights from the launch of the All-Party Parliamentary Group for Africa's report on Africa's just energy transition, and I'll be revisiting my conversation with Ghanaian nurse Naomi Oye Ohene Oti, a finalist for a prestigious Global Nursing Award. All of this after the break. Do stay with us. Welcome back to Channel's Business Globe with me, Juliana Olayinka, reporting from just outside the Palace of Westminster in central London. This week, the All-Party Parliamentary Group for Africa launched its report on Africa's just energy transition at the UK Parliament, just behind me. The report underscores the importance of equitable and sustainable energy development in Africa, calling for increased UK support in finance, technology transfer and policy frameworks. Lord Johnny Oates, co-chair of the APPG, emphasised that Africa, despite contributing the least to global emissions, faces the most severe impacts of climate change. The report recommends that the UK fulfil its climate and finance commitments and collaborate with African nations to promote renewable energy initiatives.
Well, we gathered to publish this report, which is on just energy transition in Africa. It came out of a whole series of conversations that we had with politicians, trade unionists, civil society in Africa about a sense that people and decision makers in the high-income countries didn't really understand African perspectives on just energy transition. And our inquiry was all about trying to understand what the real issues and challenges were from an African perspective. I think it varies very much from country to country. What we were looking for was honest giving of perspectives. I don't think we got much sort of head nodding and yes, we agree with you. We had some quite challenging conversations where people were quite critical of the role that the UK and other countries are playing, and were very keen for us to understand the perspective of Africa. So no, I think we got very honest insights, and as we said when publishing the report, we were keen to reflect them, even if they, were against our perspectives. That we thought that was particularly important. Well, it remains, whether politicians like it or not, the most critical issue, because it's absolutely existential for all of us, whether on the European continent, the African continent, or indeed the North American continent. So we can't shy away from it. What I said was, we've got to keep up our ambitions, we've got to keep to our principles and our values, and make the argument and continue to engage with the United States and others on this, but we mustn't shy away from our position, because, as I said, whatever politicians think, climate change isn't going away.
The reason I'm here in the UK Parliament is because the All Parties Parliamentary Group for Africa has launched its report on Africa's perspective on the just energy transition. The Royal Africa Society, which I chair, is the secretariat to the All Parties Parliamentary Group for Africa. And this report is testament to how phenomenal the APPG for Africa is, how committed they are to the success of the continent. This report brings together the issues around climate with the issues of energy poverty. And as I said in my own remarks, isn't it ironical that Africa is so energy resource rich, but so energy poor? And so making some practical recommendations about how this can be resolved was very significant, and I'm very delighted that we had bankers, we had heads of renewable entities, we had people in government, we had of course our co-chairs, Right Honourable Chi Anwora and Lord Oates. We had the Africa Director for the Foreign and Commonwealth Development Office in the room, and we had other advocates showcasing that this is an absolutely important issue, both for the continent of Africa but also for the UK. It's an absolutely important time to have this report be launched. First, because what you shared about what's going on geopolitically is changing the dynamics. So in my view, Africa needs to continue to take leadership on issues that concern Africa. All of the resources for a sustainable future, for a carbon-free future, can be found in Africa. In our country, Nigeria, whether it's solar, wind, power, hydrocarbons, geothermal, there are all sorts of sources that are available to us. Secondly, issues around resources. So one of the things that's been driving the focus on what the US is doing is the fact that they've reduced overseas development assistance. But there's a lot of resources that are available within Africa. So domestic resource mobilization has to be the focus. And as I've said in the past, if you've got 2.4 trillion today of assets managed by institutional investors, so pension funds, banks, insurance companies, and some of it is still being invested in US treasuries, some of that can be redirected to investing in some amazing projects in Africa that will also enable people to earn huge returns. So one of the things for me that was important about this report was it wasn't focusing on climate as an idealistic issue. It was focusing on what does it mean for Africa to expand energy? What do you need to do from a production and a point of view? What do you need to do from a finance point of view? What does the UK government need to do? What do UK parliamentarians need to advocate for? And one of the things I admired very much is that Lord Oates, who led the production of this report, first of all, originated it because when he was visiting Africa, he felt like, well, we're trying to do things related to Africa, but some of the Africans are saying, but our perspectives are not being taken account of. The second is the practical approach that the report has taken, which is that you need to, that we need to expand energy access. and we need to look at ways in which we'll expand energy. So it's a very pragmatic approach. And another one which I forgot to mention is that a lot of the evidence, a lot of the witnesses, a lot of the testimonies that the parliamentarians received were from Africans who are experts. So the combination of the three really distinguishes this report. It's easy to read, it's practical, and it's one where we should probably roadshow and launch in several parts of Africa, in addition to this launch at the Parliament today.
And now to my final topic. Early this week, I had the opportunity to speak with Naomi Oyo Ohene Oti, a senior oncology nurse from Ghana and one of 10 finalists for this year's Astor Guardians Global Nursing Award. Naomi has been instrumental in establishing Ghana's first formal oncology nurse training program, producing over 60 certified specialists. The winner of the $250,000 award will be announced in Dubai later this month.
Quite overwhelmed. Thank you very much. Honestly, it's humbling and it's quite deeply emotional. First, I want to thank God for such a recognition and to be recognized on such a global platform as Astor Guardians Global Nursing Award. It's not just a personal honor. It is a reflection of the resilience and the dedications and the potentials of our nurses across Ghana and Africa. I carry their stories, I carry their challenges and their triumphs with me. And being in the top 10 reminds me that representations matter. And it reinforces my commitment to continue advocating for equitable health systems and greater investment in nursing, which goes along with the new states of nursing reports that's in. I think, as you said, having a mentor is very important. Having mentors who really knows your capabilities, sees you daily, and it should not just be someone in your profession. I think one of my greatest mentors is a physician who saw the greatness, my energy into looking out for more, knowledge, seeking knowledge, and also making sure that my patient get the best outcome. And in terms of the voices, because I'm one of the nurses who will challenge you in the clinic because of what I know and what I always want the patient to have.
Well, we wish Naomi the best of luck in the final selection. Sadly, that's all we have time for today, but as always, do get in touch with your comments and suggestions. I'll see you at the same time next week for more in-depth business analysis on Channel's Business Global. Goodbye.